Welcome to the Mitcham History Notes YouTube channel. Today's video in the Lost Pubs series, I'm going to have a look at the Red Lion pub in Colliers High Street. Today the building is a co-op. It's been that way for 7 years. Previously it was the site of the Red Lion pub. A coaching inn was here in the late 18th century, and the present building had been altered and improved sometime prior to 1933 by the Hoare and Company Brewery. It was in 1933 that Charrington's bought the Hoare Brewery and their estate of pubs, as well as the Toby brand. The Red Lion seems to have been quite successful. In 1939 its rateable value was assessed at £663, which was the same as the Gorringe Park Hotel and twice that of the Buck's Head in Mitcham. The owner of the Red Lion pub, Charrington's, merged in 1967 with Bass to form a larger company called Bass Charrington. 2 years later, in 1969, a subsidiary company called Charam Limited was formed to lead its business model away from what was called wet sales, that is beer, to dry sales, that is food. Charam Limited ran the Red Lion as a managed house, and it was to become a disco pub a couple of years later. The local residents weren't impressed, however. Fights outside the disco pub, vandalism to local properties, and parking spaces being taken by the patrons led to protests by the residents. Managers from Charam Limited attempted to firefight these complaints by saying that they would put up notices urging the customers to leave quietly and not to disturb the local residents. This appeared to have no effect, and the residents' protests continued. They even considered withholding the payment of rates. The Colliers Gazette interviewed local people, and here are some of their comments. Mr. George Day, newsagent, said, "I've had my window smashed late at night and often find broken bottles scattered outside my front door." Joseph Fox and the Barry and Alan Calder brothers all work in the area, although they live in Essex. They all agree there is bound to be a certain amount of trouble, but on the whole the Red Lion is a well-run and orderly pub. Lee Marshall, barmaid of the Red Lion, said the trouble had been blown up out of all proportion in the 6 months that she'd been working there. There've hardly been any fights at all, and I'd be sorry to see it close, because there's nowhere else like this pub in the area. They're quite a nice crowd, and most of them are locals. Lynn Bright, who lives in Kingston, uses the pub 3 or 4 times a week. She thinks it is a great pub and has a terrific atmosphere. She said, "Since I've used this pub, there has never been any violence, and this is one reason why I've used it." Mrs. Davis of Walpole Road had no real complaints. She said, "These things have got to go on somewhere, and if I were younger I'd probably think it would be a great place to use. In fact, if I had the time I'd use it even now. The nuisance is confined to half an hour in the evening." Mr. A. Burnett and his wife live in Cavendish Road, and he said, "I don't have any real beef against the place. I've never had any trouble from people who use the pub, but I think they've spoiled the place. I used to go in there, but I don't anymore. There was a time when I used to go in and I'd know practically everybody in there, but now there would not be a single face I know. It's lost all of its colour and atmosphere." Helena Crisson of Marlborough Road said, "I think the pub has become pretty disgusting and terrible, and a major source of annoyance is this parking business over the weekend. I wouldn't be seen dead in the pub, and I'd willingly see it close, but I suppose it's all right for the young. There's also a lot of noise from the community centre, which is next door to the Red Lion." Peter Blake, who lives in Youghal but works locally, uses the pub regularly and thinks it is very good. "In the 18 months I've used the place, I've only seen one fight. I think it would be a very bad thing if it did close, because it's the only thing going on in the area. The only other place like it is in Putney." Mr. Rigby of Clive Road said, "I feel very strongly about this. It's a bloody awful pub. It's always been rough, but now it seems to have got worse. I've no objection to lads having a disco or anything, but the people who get in there seem to be troublemakers. I'd sign a petition to close it, and the sooner the better." And Mr. Ferrier of University Road points out that he doesn't drink, but he says that when he goes out and comes back fairly early evening, there are so many cars about, he finds it difficult to park his own. He said, "I think the pub, clientele and all this parking business are all disgraceful, and I'm in favour of its closure." November 1972, there was a victory for the residents. The headline here says the disco pub stays open. That's because Charam Limited appealed. But the GLC revoked the music and dance licence for the pub, so it was no longer a disco pub. But what happened afterwards? I've got no real information on what happened in the 80s or 90s, but in the early 2000s, it's changed its name to GJ's Bar. This is a street view from 2008. 2012, The name's changed again to The Prince. In 2014, it changed its name again to The Provenance, although this Street View photograph of September 2014 shows it all boarded up. I think it had been sold then. And it got rebuilt and extended up. And it became the Co-op in 2018, which is what it is today. And what about the brewery, Charrington's? Well, in 1933, when they bought Hoare and Company Brewery, and hence took ownership of the Red Lion and the Buck's Head, they also got the Toby Jug brand. And what happened to Tram Limited? It morphed into Toby Restaurants Limited, which today is more familiar as the Toby Carvery. Well, I hope you found this interesting. If you did, perhaps you could press that like button. And if you haven't subscribed, consider subscribing. Bye for now.